Welcome back to the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast, episode 42. Today I'm bringing on a guest. If you are on Instagram, you might follow Katie from Now That I'm a Mother. I'm going to save most of the introductions for when I actually jump on with her, but I just want to say that I wanted Katie to come on this podcast because I find her perspective on motherhood really refreshing. She just always shares things that help me to see mothering as a beautiful thing. So let's dive into the interview. My name is Lisa, mom of 6 and creator of the blog and YouTube channel Farmhouse on Boone. Join me as I share with you my love for creating a handmade home from scratch cooking and a little mom and entrepreneur life along the way. Well, I'm on with Katie. She is from Now That I'm a Mother on Instagram. Your podcast is called Now That We're a Family.
That's correct. Yep.
Yes. And then I noticed that your husband also has Now That I'm a Father.
Yeah.
I brought her on. And then you also have YouTube.
Yes.
That too.
Yep.
Yeah.
YouTube too. You're right.
On all the places. So I brought you on because I love your perspective on motherhood. And I know that you grew up in a large family. You're on your way to having a pretty large family already at your young age. And just yesterday, you were sharing some things on your Instagram stories that I found really refreshing as far as patience and all of that stuff. So I just wanted to talk about that because a lot of these things that people are interested in and ask me a lot of questions about, and oftentimes I don't even feel qualified. So, you know.
Oh, yeah, I know. I don't know if anyone really feels qualified to talk about a lot of topics people want to hear about. You're like, because I know myself and I know where I fall short. And so even if you have good ideas or things that work, you know, like the times that you don't even act on your own, you know, what you know you should be doing.
Exactly.
I admire you so much. And I look up to you as a mother that's further along in both her business journey and her childhood, like childbearing journey. And I'm just like, wow, if Lisa can do it, that gives me hope.
Oh man. Yeah. I feel like I fail every day, but you just learn as you go.
Yes.
Where are you sitting? You, I know, are currently in a RV.
In an RV. Yes. So it's kind of crazy. My husband and I were actually buying a home a couple months ago. And 2 months before we closed escrow on that house, the shutdown order for our Washington state happened. And we looked at each other and we were like, we do not want to be getting in this kind of debt right now. Like the world's just so uncertain. We have no idea. Like maybe it's going to be a good thing and we'll have a great house and stuff, but it might not be. And so we just dropped out of escrow that day and instead bought a trailer. It's a 28-foot travel trailer, and we moved our 3 kiddos and us in there and are just renting on a friend's property. We're just going to wait out this whole crazy thing that's going on and see what's happening on the other side, I guess.
Well, so I watched your YouTube video around the time that you guys made that decision. And I know it was a heartbreaking one because you were in love with the house. You built it, correct?
Yeah.
You had wonderful relationship with the builder, but things all of a sudden, I mean, within days of closing, right?
Yeah.
That you realized things were a little bit turbulent.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because we had so much say and like the finishes and the paints and the floors. And so we'd really gone through that whole process and gotten really connected to the house. And it's so funny though, how in a moment you all of a sudden realize, oh, this can go from being a really good thing to being a really negative thing so quickly. And I do think we'll view life differently moving forward in terms of how much debt we're willing to get into, because that was really stretching us financially. But you think when there's a good economy and everything just keeps going on how it should, it's so easy to assume that's just going to keep happening. And it might, stuff might keep going on as, I don't know, it might pick up where it left off, but I'm just glad we aren't taking that gamble right now. But yeah, it was just a couple days away from closing, which is kind of crazy.
I could see how heartbroken you guys were to make that decision, but I'm probably about 10 years older than you. And I went through, not went through, but I was an adult-ish whenever the economy crashed back in 2008.
Oh yeah.
And so I know these things can happen and we all know that they can, but quickly forget. And yeah, anytime you overextend yourself, stuff can go wrong.
Yeah, it is funny looking at history and how quickly we forget certain things and just think, oh, we're good. We're good to go.
We're in this modern day. Nothing can happen to us. We are
Yes.
sophisticated and beyond that. Yeah, I find that with a lot of things, people tend to forget where our vulnerability.
Exactly. It's our vulnerability. And it's so funny how you go from even looking at a city life and feeling like, oh yeah, this is where we want to be. This is where the shops are, the dining, like what's happening. And now we're living way out in the country. And we are like, there is no place we would rather be. Like, especially
You're missing nothing right now.
No, not at all. And it's funny just how your ideal totally flip-flops. And you see everybody, you know, on Instagram. Well, making sourdough, you're like legendary sourdough now.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And like homesteading, I don't know, all this stuff that you're doing now is like super cool and like on trend again.
I never would have expected it. When I started my sourdough 10 years ago, that it would become what it is now, but it was definitely brought on by the last few months. So everybody's perspective is shifting. So you have 3 small children. They're very close in age as far as I remember.
Yeah.
And you're all in a camper. So how's that going?
In a camper, yeah. So, you know, it's definitely been an adjustment phase. I like to say, like, when it's sunny outside, it's great. We live in the Pacific Northwest, and so it's still really rainy for weeks at a time here. And those are like really, really hard right now. But I know the summer's coming, and I'm excited about that. But yeah, I have Leon is just turned 3. Lucy just turned 2, and then Lewis is almost 1.
Oh my word.
Yeah, so the sleeping schedules in the trailer and the napping schedules, like we've really had to adapt a lot, but we have a couple bunk beds and the kids sleep on those, and Louis' pack and play, we kind of just move around the trailer depending on where it's best for him to sleep.
Yeah, you make it work, and you guys are, I'm sure, learning patience and all kinds of great things in there.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, my little talk on patience is something I had to have been focusing on.
How is that working out for you today?
Exactly.
So you grew up in a large family. Are you the oldest?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of 11 kids.
That's what I thought,
and yeah, so all growing up, we would get asked, are you guys Mormon or Catholic? Are you Mormon or Catholic?
Yep.
And my parents were like, no, we're Christians, but we just like having kids. So I guess Christian meaning not Mormon or Catholic, but another sect of Christianity. Yeah, but I don't know. It's kind of crazy. My dad always said he wanted to have a big family, and my mom thought he was joking. And then the kids just kept coming, and I really saw that like joy and fun in motherhood from my mom. And it made it seem like something worthwhile and something worth pursuing. And I don't know, she made a career out of it.
Yeah.
And I really, really admired that.
Well, with the positive way that you view mothering, and it's very different from what we see, it's clear that she did model that. And my dad, and he's one of 14.
Wow.
And a lot of his siblings don't see the same thing, you know?
Yes.
They're a big Catholic family. They grew up, it was hard work, and mostly just the relationship wasn't quite like it seems like with you and your parents.
Yeah, I feel like anything like within a large family, there's more people, so it's just magnified. So if someone has a really good experience, they want that. And if it's a bad experience, it's typically like
the opposite.
It's just really strong vibes. A lot of my friends that I grew up with in big families didn't have a great experience. And I think I was able to contrast that with how I was raised. And so as a mother that would like to have, you know, a bigger than average family, I've definitely been looking back and like, okay, why did I have such a great childhood? Why did my friend not? You know, what were those like subtleties in the way that my parents related to me or gave me so much fun and like this great perspective, whereas her parents who like totally loved her somehow missed that mark.
Well, I would be curious, what have you found out? Because people say things like, how do you have time to give them all individual attention? And realistically, you really don't, but maybe there's a way to make them feel loved and connected even when it's not one-on-one time.
Yeah, exactly. I think love languages play into that. Like my parents were really intent on knowing, okay, who are the quality timers? I was one of those, so I'm like a big time sucker, you know? So when I said like, hey, I needed time, my parents were really quick to like drop what they were doing because they knew, okay, that means a ton to Katie. Where some of my siblings, they were gifts or they were words of affirmation or physical touch. And so I feel like my parents kind of brought in these different scientific elements into their parenting, where it's like we aren't going to spend quality time to the same extent with every child because that doesn't pay off in the same way as some other act of love would. So it kind of helped them, I feel like. Obviously, every kid needs to be heard from their parents, and I think my parents asked a lot of questions. They also, like my mom, you know, didn't have a smartphone. And that's a lot easier, like not to have that temptation. We didn't have a TV in our home. We didn't watch movies. So like when my dad came home, he was 100% on board with us hanging out. And like, he's really creative and like playing games with us. And he's a really fun guy. So even though daddy worked a lot when he was home, it was really surrounded. Like we did a lot of fun things and fun experiences as a family. Like we all skied as a family. We all wakeboarded as a family, stuff like that.
Wow. I don't even know how they managed that many kids to do those fun things, but they're just go-getters, obviously. Yeah. So you're a stay-at-home mom, but you're also a work-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. Describe what is your business? I know you have your podcast and your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so it's a combination. I feel like a lot of stay-at-home moms have a combination of stuff going on, or entrepreneurs in general. So the podcast, now that we're a family podcast, I do that with my husband, which is really fun. And that's more a ministry type thing. And then YouTube, where you get sponsorships and you make videos, and I really enjoy doing that side of business. And then we have I guess it's direct sales company that's kind of just been in the background running for the last 6 years, and it just keeps growing year over year. So my husband helps me manage that as well. And then I have a club that's called the Get It All Done Club, and that's where I kind of break down the systems that have helped me in mothering and kind of juggling everything. So that only opens up every few months. It's currently like closed for enrollment right now, but that's been a lot of fun running that.
That's interesting. So do you go live in that group, or?
So yeah, that's a series of pre-recorded videos. So it's monthly, you pay $20, and then every day you get like a 2 to 5 minute video that breaks down a certain concept of motherhood or being more efficient with your time, different systems that have worked for me. And you get kind of like some action steps that are point-based. And everyone is on this app together, like the Get It All Done Club app. And so you're able to track your progress and see your scores based on the other moms going through it. So it's really fun. It's gamified. And then there is a Facebook group part of it, which is where I'll go live and share stuff there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a blast.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So as a mom and a work-at-home mom, you were talking about this yesterday on your Instagram stories with patients, and how you have certain tasks that can't get done with kids around and certain ones that you're able to get done with kids around so that you're less stressed. Mm-hmm. How do you manage all of that? I get that question a lot. Like, how do you do anything on your own at all when you have all these kids?
It's funny because I remember asking you the question, like, how do you do all these things? And you're like, you can't do it all. And I remember thinking, oh, you're so right. You are so right. So you definitely can't like do everything. You have to prioritize. I think being good at prioritization really helps. But then breaking it down into focus tasks and brainless tasks for me. And it doesn't mean you can't still get really productive stuff done with all your kiddos around. Like, I clean with my kiddos around because to me, that's brainless. Like, I do it over and over and over. And so it's easy for me to include them in it, to just kind of putsy around. And it's like, I'm up anyways, they're up anyways. And my kids are so little, something like loading the dishwasher or spraying down a window is like actually really entertaining to them. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone. I don't have to entertain them, and I'm getting stuff done I need to get done. And then focus tasks are things that take a lot of my mental energy. I do those either in the morning before the kids get up, during nap times, or after they go to bed. I was even saying this on the Instagram stories. If I take an Instagram story and try to caption it right there, for whatever reason, the captioning part is the focus part. And I will like snap at my kids if they're interrupting me, or like, stop, like I'm trying to think. So like anytime I'm trying to think, I guess, I'll just take that story and save it and then caption it and upload it later.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, so many times I'm trying to do something and I'm like, you're mid-sentence, you're thinking, and then they pop in there and the only reaction you can have is snapping at them.
Yes.
Because you're trying to think when there's kids awake.
Yeah. It's like they become the problem, but I set them up to be the problem in that situation.
Right. That's very, very true. Taking responsibility for that. And I don't know about you, but like cooking is also something that I can do with kids awake just fine. Cooking, cleaning, any task like that, that's what you do when the kids are awake. And if you're trying to run a business, you really want to run a business, but you have kids at home and you feel stuck, you get all of that stuff done when the kids are awake with the kids. And then you have all of nap, all of morning, all of late at night after bedtime to get that done.
Exactly. Those are like the business hours. And for moms that aren't running a business from home necessarily, those are fun times to, I mean, I don't know about you, Lisa, but I definitely feel like my business is my hobby too, to a certain extent. Like there's stuff that has to get done and it's not fun, but a lot of it is fun and creative for me. And it's like a hobby. Yeah. So for moms that don't have maybe that business that they're doing, those are great times to do something that is a hobby or something that's more relaxing or just feeds you and your mental state and your creativity.
Yeah. I used to, when I had 2 little girls, I sewed like crazy, and I still like to sew, but I don't get as much time to do it. And it's not as rewarding when it's for a bunch of boys, to be honest.
That's true.
It was way more fun to put together these little boutique, roughly polka dots mixed with stripes dresses when the girls were little. And now it's just like, I can make them ties, but why?
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, late at night, nap time, those were times to learn how to bake the sourdough bread, learn how to sew. Whenever you have to think, when you're trying to think through how long should this piece be to fit the ruffle to the bottom of the dress, kids, if they interrupt you, are just going to be in the way. And that is not what you want to set yourself up for.
Exactly.
So do you ever get time for yourself, or you and your husband? How do you prioritize that?
Yeah. So we do these things called free days. And this is probably every other month. So I get a full day. And this last month, actually, because we were in the trailer, my husband got me a hotel room, which was a big blessing. I've never done that before. And I did an overnight by myself, but it's just like a completely free day for me to relax and be without the kiddos. And I'm still nursing Louis, so he would bring Louis to me to nurse. And
okay, that's what I was thinking. I was like, wait a minute, what do you do with the baby? Because I don't get free anything until the baby's like at least 1, and then it's like an hour. And so yeah, that's nice.
Everyone is different on that too, depending on how you decide to feed your baby. Louis at this point, he's almost 1, and like he can go 4 hours between feedings.
Oh yeah,
fine.
at that
or,
age, yes.
Take a bottle or something like that. And then when they're really little, I'll do like 3-hour stints by myself. So I might just get 6 hours that day, but Elisha will bring the baby in the middle and I'll be able to nurse. So yeah, those are really fun. And so we'll trade off. So I'll take, January, I'll give one to Elisha. In February, he gives one to me in March. Those are ideal. But then during a day, I guess it's kind of those same times if I get up before my kids. When I was in a house, I had them stay in bed until like 7:30 so they could play in their rooms, but they weren't allowed to come out. So any time before that I knew was my own time. Now they get up with me, so I just try to go for a drive or push them in the stroller or something.
Oh yes, you were saying that on your story.
I'm just kind of like a little bit able to free my mind. Yeah. And then nap time, they all nap at the same time. So it's 2 hours every day. That's like total break in the afternoon, which I love.
Oh, I remember those days when kids were 3 and under.
Yes. See, you have older kids now.
I'm so far from any of the stuff you just said. Like, I don't have control as much over my kids. Not that, they're kids, but staying in their room till 7:30. Oh, I wish. It's at this point, it's just all over the place. Like this morning, we were out of bed by 5:30 because the 2-year-old got out and went downstairs, and I'm like, I think I hear little feet going down the stairs, and I chased him down the stairs, and we were up 5:30.
Wow.
But I suppose I don't even know how I could make him stay there, but I should figure that out.
It is tricky when they're very little. Yeah. It takes a lot of effort, but then they get used to it. And so see, this is something that I think every mom's like style of motherhood so different too, which is fun. Like you can go with a flow that works for you. And for me, I'm kind of a person who likes to count on certain times of the day. So I'll really work on that.
Yes. You're more of a schedule person.
Yes. I think you're more laid back with the flow.
I am. So I'm like, but like, I like that idea. Like that sounds really cool because people always say like my morning routine and I get up early before the kids, and I'm like, there's no getting up before the kids. Like that's not a thing.
You're like, I get up early with the kids.
Yeah, that's not a thing. But I'm sure if I actually had taken the effort to put that in place, it could exist. And you've built that in because I should really figure that out.
You're figuring out enough. You have so many things I want to learn from. But yeah, I think it depends on your style of motherhood. For me, those are like, I go crazy at this stage of life if I can't count on some time. And so I guess I've really, really built that in. But yeah, as the kids get older, it will definitely be interesting to see how that morphs and how we grow again. We'll probably have to adapt to new things.
Maybe, well, my sister, her oldest is 7. And I kept telling her that eventually what you do isn't going to work because I'm so beyond that. And still to this day, her kids are all go to sleep at 7, even the oldest. Like at 7 o'clock, they're all asleep. And So she's like, didn't happen to me. I'm like, well, you're just different then. Because she's more like you. Like, she is definitely more of a scheduled person. So she has built that and made that happen. And I always thought it was the age of my kids, and it was probably just more my personality than that. Because we still have kids running around the house at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, her house shuts off at 7, and our house doesn't shut off.
So like your kids are happy that they get to get a stay up later.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fun. Yeah, I think I was 19, 20, and our house was still shut down at 9, living at home. So it was one of those things. Now, like my siblings that are in high school and stuff, they have friends over and my parents go to bed without them. And I'm just like, what on earth? Because when I was home, we all went to bed at 9.
That is interesting. See, I think, well, my sister's house definitely still runs that way. And my girls want to do a sleepover tomorrow night with her girl, because we have our first 3 kids between the 2 of us were girls, and then we had 7 boys. But they said not at her house. Because like, well, there we have to all go to bed at the same time. And, you know, Laura's house shuts down.
Well, yeah, you're the fun mom.
Well,
so
and I don't know. Like, I would like to have a little bit more of that, really. But yeah, it's definitely way less structured around here. But that's just, I guess, how Luke and I both are. That's how it was in my family too. Like, mom and dad probably went to bed. We were up. There was not near the structure. But it's nice to know that if you want that, you can get that, and that your hobbies or your business pursuits don't have to stop because you're a mom. That's something I find inspiring about you. You have every excuse because you have 3, 2, and 1-year-old.
Well, I look at you and how your business keeps on trucking. You know, I see your pregnancy, and then I see photos of you having a baby, and then like nothing stops. I'm watching Lisa's life, and like Farmhouse on Boone just keeps on turning. So I don't know. I just really look up to you.
Well, thank you. I've set things in place with a lot of help and a team, so that way things like that can continue to happen.
That takes effort too, though, to like set all that stuff up.
It does. And I was just talking about that with Luke last night, because I have another potential person to bring on the team. And at first, when she emailed me, it was kind of like, ugh, because, you know, setting it all up. But then once I get the person going, it's a whole different story. That's a whole different topic on business, but it is getting those kind of systems in place too are really important if you want to have an online business and still have a life, because it can get crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
As you know.
For sure.
So do you have any encouragement for moms? I mean, you constantly share encouragement for moms over on your Instagram. That's where I get your content the most. You post in your stories and on your feed. Every post is super encouraging. What would be, if you could boil down just all that you talk about in just a little time, what would your encouragement be?
Oh man, that's a good question. Probably the biggest thing when I think about motherhood is it's just such a blessing. Like, it's a gift to be a mom. And you talk to women who struggle with infertility, and you realize what a gift it is to be a mom. And I think sometimes as children come into our life, we can buy into this mentality like we either are losing ourselves in motherhood or we have to sacrifice in motherhood. And those things are true in the fact that like we do have to make sacrifices in motherhood 100%, but like we can just grow into better, more full versions of ourselves. It doesn't mean that we have to say no to all the things that brought us joy and before we had kids. And we can bring our kids along with us in that. And so I just think the blessing of kids is that they're forcing us to grow and learn and adapt and find new ways to do things. And I would just encourage mothers, regardless of what age or stage your kids are, to come up with, like, you get to create your home. Like, you could get to create your home environment and what that looks like and how it feels and the culture there. And it can be a culture that brings you life and makes life even like more exciting post babies. I guess I just see like this motherhood culture with like, oh, I need to drink my wine and get through it motherhood. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to sign up for that.
It's too long for that.
Lame. Like, it's way too long.
It's short,
but it's like your whole life. It's your best years. It's after you've matured to a certain stage where you can actually enjoy life without being all insecure and worried about your spouse and all this stuff. And I don't know, I just feel like they're some of the best years of life.
Yeah.
And I don't just want to just survive through 20 plus years or 40 years. I mean, depending on
if you keep having them.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't sign up for more than one kid, honestly, if I thought that I just had to survive every day from now until
Or maybe
they're
not
grown.
even that one. I mean, if you didn't think there was going to be some joy, some reward, some level of you still doing, like you said, all the things that bring you joy, but in a different, even more deeper way. That's a really refreshing perspective and something I have to revisit often because I find myself in that sometimes. Have you heard the quote where someone says that the kids aren't, what was it? Now I can't remember. They're the most,
I don't know, but now I want to hear it.
They're not the distraction from the work. They are the work, the most important. You know, you think of them as
Getting in the way.
something getting in the way. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And that would be how our culture views it. Like you said, you need the wine to get through it.
Yeah. I don't know. They can get in the way. Again, if we set up our lives like that, it can feel that way, but it doesn't have to feel that way.
Yeah. That's really refreshing perspective on it. How do you remind yourself of that?
Oh, you know what's funny is, they say the teacher learns the most. And I feel like that's the whole reason why I started sharing thoughts on social media, because I was like, I need to be thinking this way. I think so much of what we get out of life depends on the mindset that we have when we go into it. And every time I'm writing a post, I'll take something that maybe I've seen negatively or I've heard someone say negatively. And I think, okay, where's the spin on this where God actually intended this for our good, especially when it comes to kids, because so often in the Bible, the Lord says kids are a blessing, kids are a blessing. And then I see all these negative things, or maybe I'm starting to get in the mindset of, I could do so much if these guys were just, taken care of by someone else, or, if we'd waited to have kids, or, I get so into my work or the things that I enjoy, I start to think of them, like you said, if it's getting in the way. And so then I think, okay, well, what's the spin on this? Why were they given to me? Because they're given to me to bless my life. So how can I see that blessing in this moment?
Yeah, because this is what you share, you are forcing yourself to think of it often.
Yes.
That's brilliant. I need to shift my whole blog.
Well, yeah, like I look at your blog and it's like, okay, it's the things like you love to do, right? Or you want to get better at.
Yeah.
Or learn from. And that's what YouTube and Instagram are. It's like, okay, how do I get better at this? How do I learn this in a way that I could teach it to other people? And you find yourself growing in the process.
Yes, definitely. Oh, that's such a great perspective. And I like you boiled it down really, really well. Tell me and where we can find you, what you offer. I know I've mentioned your podcast and your Instagram.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I think we mentioned everything. So Now That We're a Family is, again, it's a podcast. It's very faith-based. So it's a faith-based marriage and family podcast for young families that I do with my husband.
And it's very good.
Thanks. It's really fun. That's really fun to do. And then YouTube is Now That I'm a Mother, and that's kind of more long form content of life and things I'm learning, hacks I'm learning. And from that is what developed the Get It All Done Club, which I will be sharing on Instagram now that I'm a mother when that opens back up for enrollment.
Oh, that's exciting. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so very much for joining me. I really, really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It was an honor.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that talk with Katie as much as I did. If you want access to all of my free ebooks and printables in one place, I have several ebooks on homemade body products that are natural, on the farmhouse style, on even I have a 50+ page sourdough ebook, some printables, all in one place. You can get access to that at farmhouseonboone.com/farmhouse resources. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast, and I will see you in episode 43.